You are listening to the new man beyond the macho jerk and the new age wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
How would a scientist approach getting stronger and leaner? Is cardio getting in the way of your fat loss goals? And do we really need things to be a struggle in order to prove that we're smart, special, or strong? Dr. John Jaquish is a scientist, inventor, and now author of Weightlifting is a Waste of Time. So is cardio, and there's a better way to have the body you want. He's very outspoken about how the fitness industry is a failure, and he believes he has the scientific data to back up his claims. He invented the X3 home fitness product, which can fit in a bag. And he claims that, along with an unconventional diet, by using this thing for only 10 minutes a day, you can have the body of someone who spends hours in the gym every week. Full disclosure, I don't own the X3 product at this time, and I was not compensated in any way for conducting this interview. As I was reading through this book, there was a lot of stuff that it just sounded a little too good to be true. But let's start in with your story. Where were you a few years ago? Describe your world, because I went into this. I saw pictures of you before I read the book, and I was like, oh, this guy's been a fitness buff his whole life. Like, he's been a bodybuilder. You're all chiseled up, and you're this,
the day I turned 40, I was not big and kind of chubby.
Okay.
Like most regular guys who are, late 30s, early 40s. So, I definitely had not seen my abs for years.
And what were kind of the conventional things that you were believing at the time? What were the conventional beliefs that you were buying into about fitness back then?
Yeah, I've been a scientist for a while. So I finished my PhD in 2012. So I already didn't believe in any of it, but I was doing it because I just didn't have the time to really focus on it. And like just a little bit of my background, I developed the world's most powerful medical device that reverses osteoporosis, builds bone density. And in that process, what the device does, and I did it to treat my mother's osteoporosis, and then and it kind of grew from there. And now there's hundreds of thousands of people being treated in 8 different countries. It's called OsteoStrong. So when looking at all these things together, and especially the data coming off of my medical device, I realized I'm the only guy in the world that has data that shows that weightlifting is awful. Like, it is a totally lame stimulus.
And you knew this early on, and you just kind of went with the status quo, or was this all starting to come together at a certain point?
It was coming together in my head. I hadn't written anything down. I hadn't talked to anybody yet. And every time I go to lift, I'd be like, this is stupid. Like this is just dumb. Like, I'm just wasting my time here. And developing a new product that doesn't happen overnight.
I'm getting this context where there's a lot of guys that are in lockdown right now. They're getting flabby, and maybe they're putting. It's really common for these guys. Like, you know what? Now's the time. I'm going to get back in shape. They start throwing heavy things around. They get injured. Now they're worse off because they've got to rehab this thing. They're frustrated. They go downhill mentally and emotionally. It's like, this is never going to happen. Right. That time's passed, and I'm just going to be in pain from now on. And now this is coming in with these ideas of like, wait a second, weightlifting's stupid. And you also are really clear that cardio is pretty stupid in terms of.
It depends.
Right.
So, I mean, like, is there ever a reason to lift weights? Well, if you're a competitive weightlifter, yes. Is there a reason to do sustained cardio? Well, if you're a marathon runner and you really like going distances, yeah, sure. I mean, like, I'm not saying that like an entire sport is wrong, because they exist on their own merit, but
for most of us that are just wanting to feel better, feel stronger,
if you just want to be in shape. Like, if you want to be lean and strong, which is pretty much everybody's goal. I always love it when people say, well, I want a customized program. It's like, shut up. You want the same thing everybody else does. It's so stupid. Like, oh, do you want to be fatter?
Yeah.
Is that the difference for you? I don't think you do. So yeah, you want to be strong and lean. So, okay. The whole objective behind cardio as we're told, is cardio is for losing weight and strength is for gaining muscle. Cardio doesn't help you lose weight. It actually keeps you from losing body fat. Now, your weight may go down, but the weight loss is primarily the loss of muscle, and it protects body fat. So it doesn't put more body fat on you, but it makes sure you don't lose the body fat you have, which is the opposite of what people want.
Right. So they're walking and walking, or they're running and running, or they're cycling and cycling in order to lose body fat. But inherently, because of that activity, the body's saying, wait a second, we need to store fuel because you want to move longer distances and for a longer period of time.
Right. It's like your central nervous system is an engineering team that you can't talk to. And it's trying to turn you into the vehicle that is optimized for the environment as much as it can. So if you tell your body by doing cardio that you want to be an economy car, well, it's going to lighten the frame, meaning you'll lose bone density. And cardio people do lose bone density. It goes to a dangerously low degree. They have smaller engines. The economy cars don't have big V10 engines, right? They have small 4-cylinder engines or small V6s. You're going to increase your fuel storage capacity. So you'll have a bigger tank, which is like storing body fat. So like distance runners are what's called skinny fat. So they don't have a low level of body fat. You don't see a lot of muscularity on them, but their musculature is very small. Like none of this I'm telling you is my opinion. There's 40 years of clinical data on this, and it's ignored. The fitness industry just ignores it, and it's really because the industry just doesn't understand reading scientific studies. There's just nobody there that can really interpret it and teach it, and there's also no business model.
So if I'm wrapping my brain around this at a real basic level, cardio is basically setting up my body so that I don't lose fat efficiently because it thinks I need the fat in order to have longer fuel stores. And then if I'm lifting weights, I'm not doing it efficiently. And I'm also setting myself up for injury because of the way that the movements are designed. And I'm more prone to injury. But I didn't quite understand how lifting weights in the conventional sense is hindering my ability to lose weight. Can you speak to that?
It's just an inefficient stimulus. So, the easiest way to drive your percentage body fat down is to gain muscle. Because, of every pound of muscle compared to the same fat mass, the fat mass is going down by percentage, right? So when people gain muscle and don't put on body fat, they're getting leaner. They might not change their total body fat, but their percentage body fat's going down. So they certainly look a lot better. Then on top of that, the new musculature is a metabolic engine that is using calories. Like the calories in, calories out thing is way oversimplified and oversimplified means wrong. But calories do still matter. They're just a lot of other parts to that story.
Okay. And what if I'm a weekend warrior? Like I'm a surfer. I don't necessarily want to be heavier. Is this approach still for somebody like me where I want to be stronger, I want to be leaner, but I don't necessarily want to be packing on pounds of weight because it's harder. I got to paddle more. I need a bigger board, all that kind of stuff.
Even the people on the website who've gained more than 20 pounds of muscle in 6 months, number one, they ate for it. So you got to have like a lot of high quality protein to be able to put on that kind of muscle that fast. The other thing is a lot of them are at the same body weight, but they lost 20 pounds of body fat and put on 20 pounds of muscle. And I think that's what most people are after when launching the product. So I didn't want to launch this thing. I want to treat it like my medical device. I just want to license the intellectual property and have it basically be somebody else's problem. And I could go, drink a fun drink at the beach.
Right.
Which I still do every once in a while, but I brought it to a number of fitness companies and they're like, oh, you want to make a scientific argument to the fitness community? And every one of them said exactly the same thing. These are the dumbest people. You wouldn't believe how unintelligent the fitness community is. And it'll never happen. You'll never be able to sell them science. They'll never understand it.
That's crazy because there's usually is this kind of talk about all the hormones and all the, they do all this stuff. It's from the outside. I'm looking at it from the outside.
That's not the fitness industry.
That's not the fitness industry. Okay. So the people that are making the products are the ones that they don't really care about. You're saying they don't care about the data. They don't care about that stuff. They just want to make a product and push it.
Well, I shouldn't generalize. I mean, it's not all, but
okay.
It is a very high percentage. But the consumer in the fitness industry, people are still buying branched chain amino acids. Branched chain amino acids were proven worthless 20 years ago. Absolutely worthless. You might as well be swallowing sand. It's the wrong ratios to be useful for the human body. Mm-hmm. But they're cheap to make. And I like every big supplement company's got a BCAA product. So, just go, okay, well.
Sounds healthy. So it must be
dummies. It's
One of the things I came across in your book was this idea. I grew up in the era of no pain, no gain. It wasn't a good workout unless you're really sore afterwards. I always hated being sore because then I couldn't go do the activities I wanted to do. What's happening when our body gets sore? Because you were like, if you're sore, that's not a good thing. So what's happening there?
I don't want to be overly positive when it comes to the subject because like when you're using my technology, it's the hardest workout you've ever had. In fact, Dr. Sean Baker, he's an orthopedic surgeon. He's the carnivore doctor. Well, actually, I think he and Paul Saladino are going to have a pistol duel to decide who gets to call themselves that. We should do pistol duels. Those
Get back into that? Yeah. 10 paces.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 10 paces, turn fire. Yeah. What's wrong with that? It sounds good. We can do it with paintballs.
Okay.
No one needs to get hurt, but
yeah.
I mean, it's just a great idea.
Yeah.
I want to challenge
settled.
To do it.
I
want to hit him in the face with a white calfskin glove and say, I challenge you to a duel.
Yes. All right. It's got to be in the street.
And we'll use paintball guns.
Yeah. Okay.
It's fine. My aim is sick, so I'm not going to do it. So Dr. Baker, he's a world record strength athlete. He's number of world records, deadlift, indoor rowing, a couple other things. Very powerful guy. And when he started using X3, he and I have been friends and we've been exchanging science because I talk a lot about his program and he talks some about mine. And it was funny. He said a whole bunch of stuff I really didn't want him to say. And he goes, yeah, this is like the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like I'm a world record strength holder. And I like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done.
So this system that you can put in a bag and take on a flight with you is the hardest thing this guy's ever done.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And he's like one of the strongest guys out there. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh man, like, you really need to say that? Like, I mean, yeah, it's hard, but I mean, I invented it. So it's like, it's my kid, right. Like, I don't see it as hard, mm-hmm. but it's really hard. Okay. But it's quick. So, and I find that people are not lazy. They really like having their time optimized though.
Well, the whole 10 minutes thing, I mean, my eyebrows went up. I was like, this is bullshit.
Like, you don't need to do anything else. So once Baker said that, sales totally improved. Like, cause I think a lot of people who thought it was like something easy, like as soon as they realized it was hard, they're like, wait a minute, that means it's really heavy. Okay, I'm in. So that was just kind of we didn't even like discuss that as an experiment in marketing. He just went ahead and said it.
Yeah.
But that was kind of funny. So I also didn't design it to be a short workout. Like it's not short. It's exactly as long as it needs to stimulate the maximum amount of muscle growth. And then people say, why is there only one set per movement? How many sets do you do in the sun to get a suntan? Yeah, people look at me like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
One, you just go out and your skin's stimulated, right? Same with stimulating a callus, same with any other adaptive response. The only multiple exposure adaptive response that people traffic in is weightlifting. And it's because the stimulus is garbage.
And then what's happening? Come back to my question about soreness and just feeling like I can't move that next day. So what's the difference between exhaustion, which sounds like, okay, that's what the muscle needs in order to get the benefits. But then there's the soreness that you were talking about and said, well, there's something off if things are getting sore. Did I misunderstand that, or what's your take on?
No,
muscles?
You got it perfect. Yeah. So soreness is not a good thing. Soreness means muscle damage. Now, there is a myth out there that, and I mean, this is like almost every fitness person believes this, and it's so idiotic. It's just not at all true. I mean, it's not even how adaptation works, but you create micro tears in the muscle and then they grow back stronger. That's
the convention. That's the belief.
I mean, that's so foolish and ignorant of physiology. I mean, it's just like, I can't believe anybody believed that. Like, I heard that when I was a kid, and I was, I think I thought about it when I was in like high school biology, and I, read the rest of, I'm reading my biology book, and I'm like, that's idiotic. Like, that's not how that works. Micro tears. Turns out the people who have the most micro tears are cardio athletes. They don't build any muscle, they lose it.
Wow.
So micro tears is not how the growth process happens. In fact, there is, I think there's 4 different studies, and I detail these in the book, Weightlifting is a Waste of Time, that muscle damage is inversely related to growth, because you can only do so much protein synthesis in a night. You basically grow at night. Most of the protein synthesis that happens while you're sleeping. If you have to attenuate damage, you can't grow new tissue because you're repairing. So damage is not the goal. It's the opposite of the goal. You want to fatigue the muscle without any damage, and variable resistance does that. So heavy loads in the weakest range of motion, that's where the damage comes from.
And if I'm thinking like that's at the bottom of a push-up, my chest is on the ground, like that's where I tend to feel like I injure myself if I'm doing that.
Injuring yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
soreness is not an indicator that we got a good workout. In fact, it probably means that we went too far and we actually worked against ourselves.
No, I could, how like sometimes you do heavy weight workout and then like the next day there's like no way you could play golf or tennis.
Yeah, that sucks. Like,
yeah, because point? You just like can't move.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do a day after, a heavy chest workout where I'm using over 500 pounds for 20 repetitions with my chest. I could do archery, golf, tennis, knife throwing, axe throwing. I do axe throwing sometimes. It's fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I feel like.
Want to bring that back? You want to?
Yeah. We could duel with axes.
It gets a little messier than paintball. A little messier.
Yeah, we could get some softer axes that'll just hurt a little bit. Okay. The point is settling an argument. It's not killing it, because remember when the pistols at dawn, you were shooting a little ball of lead, which would usually just bounce off somebody and create a major wound, but wouldn't kill them. Okay. Like those weren't designed to kill anybody.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you could get it. You could hit somebody in the temple and kill them, but that's rare.
Okay. I hear
you. Did you know Andrew Jackson would actually have pistol duels at the White House?
I didn't know he had them at the White House. No.
I don't know that's 100% true, but I have read it.
Okay.
Somebody in Congress is like, well, the hell with you, Mr. President? And he's like, pistols in the morning.
Pistols. Here we go. With the white glove first.
Yes.
It's coming back. I could see the resistance to this because there is this attachment we have to needing things to be hard. Because I encounter this with guys that I coach, that they tend to find the hard way to do things because they're still stuck in this thing of needing to prove something. If it was quote easy, then I don't know. There's something that's less than about that approach. So here comes all the science, all the data.
Let me jump in right here. they identify with their struggle. Like, it's almost like they're trying to use a victimhood mentality in some sort of positive way. As a lot of the guys that want to argue with me, of course, they've never read the book. I'm wondering if they can actually read. I mean, they're not the smartest. This is, there's a sideways hat gym guy. So, they'll say, well, what about this or what about that? And, they're just throwing out like gibberish, like stuff that doesn't even make scientific sense. And
yeah, so we identify with the difficulty and the struggle. That somehow makes us feel better about ourselves. What do you?
The reason I brought that up is because those guys, it's like their identity is, I lift dangerous weights, so therefore I'm badass. And you're like, yeah, but is the goal to talk about how dangerous your workout is, or is the goal to get results? Like the guys who are Navy SEALs don't say, I know the target is 1 mile behind enemy lines, but I want you to drop me off 100 miles inside enemy lines so I can just, kill a lot more people.
Right.
They don't do that. They minimize risk also. All smart people minimize risk and maximize effect. It's an unwise approach. And for some reason, the, also with online community, it's like how much you bench is like a thing.
Still? That's still a thing?
Oh, yeah. And you see people with really sloppy form, twisting their body, moving one shoulder forward.
Yeah.
Because they've injured the other one doing the same thing.
I was going to say they're at surgery in 6 weeks,
Yeah. And they're like, check out how much I bench. And you're like, all right, you didn't bench anything because that was so sloppy and you didn't really complete the rep.
Right.
And number two, all you're doing is hurting yourself. So just stop. Like there's no reward for that.
Yeah, I like to challenge that belief because a lot of times we resist easy or easier. There's that part of us that identifies with if it's the struggle, then I'm somehow exceptional. This is where I get to be special because I'm not part of the herd that's taking things easier or just sitting on the couch or whatever. I like the way you're discerning this. It was like, look, if you're clear on your goals, which is to be fit, to be strong, and to be effective at it,
as strong and lean as you can be. Right.
Yeah. Then don't get caught up in this ego trap. If you want to go do the ego thing, you can. But if you want to use the data and the way that you're interpreting it and the way that you're coming at it and say, look, this can be much more effective, then you're offering something different there. You mentioned something in the book about how the fitness industry has a 99% failure rate. Can you explain that?
Yeah. And I didn't realize at the time when I wrote it, but that's probably one of the most powerful and understandable, relatable things that I said, because a lot of guys who are gym guys, they reached out to me and they're like, you know what? You're right. Almost nobody that goes to the gym, you never know. Like you'd never see any changes in them for years. And we all know, like I know I could probably name 50 people that I know that I've seen them go to the gym for years. They don't look like they work out at all. Mm-hmm. They are as average looking as the guys who don't work out at all. So ultimately, you have to, and also keep in mind, 1 in 6 males over 18 in America have used anabolic steroids.
Wow.
So that means that almost every one of those has failed also. So when somebody sees somebody that's in shape and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm sure you did a whole bunch of drugs. No, I'm sure he worked really hard, because even the people who take drugs fail.
Wow. 1 in 6 males has tried anabolic steroids?
Has used or is using.
Wow.
Yeah, that blew me away. I'm like, God, like I didn't think I knew any. I knew some guys on my rugby team in undergrad. I played rugby for Sac State. Yeah, I mean, like,
well, it also points to a mindset where we're willing to we're actually not trying to make our bodies stronger. We just want to make them bigger. It's more about appearance than what's best for my body, what's best for my
rugby. If you're a forward, being heavy is an advantage.
Mm-hmm. But I guess I'm thinking long term is like I'm willing to just destroy myself in order for this objective I got, right? Whether it's for the sport or it's for how I look.
Yeah.
Or
welcome to competitive sports. Yeah, it's often not about health. so I work with a lot of NFL players, about 10 of them. And I love these guys for two reasons. One is it's great because like everybody online, every 14-year-old kid who has a visible bicep vein is accused of being on steroids because there's so many jealous people out there that just can't stand it when they see somebody who's had some success. They just want to tear them down. So it's like, okay, look at the NFL players. They're tested regularly. And these guys are like a lean 235. They're like a running back. So if they can do it naturally, so can you.
Is that true though? I mean, how much does genetics play into that?
Make that your next question. I will nail that.
Okay.
So the second reason I like NFL players is they don't care at all how much they bench. They think it's an idiot's metric. It's a way to get hurt. All they want to do is perform better on the field because that's how they make millions of dollars. They don't make millions of dollars by posting videos on Facebook with shitty bench press form. That's not how that works. So I'm like, yeah, you probably should never bench press again. And they're like, awesome.
Great.
Yeah, I had no interest in doing that ever.
It's an injury waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I do it because it makes me a better football player, but like we don't like that. And they hate squatting because it's like the chances of just a small knee irritation that might take 0.3 of a second off their 40 time. That's a real problem.
Yeah.
It's like letting the air out of your tires before the race starts.
Right.
Like, don't do that.
Right.
So, yeah, they are great for those two reasons. Love these guys. Now, I work with more NBA players than NFL, and they all use X3. Now, the entire Miami Heat team is using X3 exclusively. And then a couple others, some guys on the Knicks. I don't plaster their name all over everything. There's just a wall of athletes. And so your next question.
The genetics. Yeah, because if I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, well, I'm not in shape because I'm just not genetically my genetic makeup is that I'm going to be built this way. This is what is natural for me. So what are your thoughts about that?
My latest Instagram post. Now I couldn't put a chapter of the book in an Instagram post. They won't even let me do that. But I talk about how Petrella in 2008 in the Journal of Applied Physiology, which is best journal, on sports science. So like a lot of strength studies pick strength athletes. And so if they're able to build strength, then they're probably able to build more strength. So what these guys did is they took a random sample of the US population. And then they tested them for triggering muscle protein synthesis by a standard weightlifting program, with like 3 sets of bench, squat, deadlift. 25%, I think it was actually 25.7. 25.7% of the participants in the study were unable, under any circumstances, to trigger any muscle growth at all.
Why? Why is that?
I'll get to that. And the rest of them had very nominal results. So these weren't athletes, these were regular people. And, you read this story and the authors didn't say this, but the natural conclusion was like, fitness programming sucks. Like, wow. Like, what a waste. Now, that conclusion of that study was totally where my head had already been. And, I read this and I'm like, I can explain exactly why. Because, and there's a whole nother section of the book about genetic potential. I'll explain what I'm doing for the listeners that aren't watching the video.
Right.
But if somebody looks at a human's pectoral, and then, it's attached to the sternum, which is the middle of your body, middle of your chest. And then the other attachment point is on the humerus bone, the upper arm. Now, usually it's very close to the start of that bone, like sort of right underneath where your bicep kind of starts, near your armpit, but close to the top of the bone. And the objective of the pectoral is to bring the arm across the body or bring the humerus bone towards the midline of the body. So humerus bone towards the midline of the body. We have different tendon layouts. Some people, instead of having it attached close to the top of the humerus, they have attachment points that are very far away from the origin, meaning they have a longer lever arm, right? Like, like you find a rock in the backyard and you can't pick it up. Then you get a smaller rock and a crowbar and you can lift that thing up right away. Somebody's like, it's a 500-pound rock. How are you doing that? Well, because I have a 10-foot crowbar and it's a long lever arm. So the people who have a longer lever arm have a stronger, weaker range of motion than most people do.
So they're stronger at the point where most of us can't, at the weakest part of the movement. I think what hasn't been said here is that it might be a given. I had to learn this, that when in any given movement, let's say we're looking at a push-up, that we are stronger at different points in that. We're strongest at the most outward point and weakest at the most compressed when our arms are in.
And everybody's like that, including these people with the tendon advantage. But when you train with variable resistance, especially high degree of variable resistance, which is the technology I designed, none of that shit matters at all. You bypass everything. So, which is why for the first 40 years of my life, I tried to be, a strength athlete, and I just didn't, nothing worked. I ended up just being kind of chubby because I kept, thinking I was eating for size, and platter of ribeyes with no muscle stimulus. That's not a recipe for looking like a champion. It is if you get the proper muscle stimulus, but so I just I was like the perfect example of somebody with poor genetics for being a strength athlete. And then I built my prototype. And within the first year, I gained 30 pounds of muscle. People would see me like month over month, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?"
Had you already changed? Because you've got a pretty radical eating. You go really into the nutrition here, because we're not just saying that moving these bands around is what's going to do it. You really go into the nutrition a lot. So had you already established a pretty rigorous, radical nutrition?
Ketogenic for 13 years already. I was ketogenic before anybody was talking about it.
But you were still chubby. You were already you're describing yourself as chubby, even though you were in that ketogenic.
I was 20% body fat. That's fat.
Okay, and then so you didn't change anything, but you didn't change anything nutrition wise or how you were eating. But then you did change how you were moving, the type of workout you were doing, and that's what shifted this. And it turned on hormones. It changed everything, not just moving muscles, but it.
So I knew. You had to have the proper building blocks. You basically have to have a gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Is that true for everybody, or is that just true for a part of the bell curve? What is that? Because there's a tendency to want to, hey, I found the thing, and this is going to apply flat across everybody.
It's true for everybody.
Okay, that
kind of gets me to like something that I hear all the time. Like the whole everybody's different. Find out what's right for you. That's not true.
Really?
I could give you 100,000 different clinical studies on whether it's nutrition or biochemical responses to pharmaceuticals or whatever. And think about it. The test group, everybody turned out the same. The control group, everybody turned out the same in those groups. And it's the comparison of the two groups because there's a different variable between the two groups. Why don't they all bust up into a scatter plot of the 20 different types of people where everybody's different, find out what's right for you? Everybody's different, find out what's right for you was the medical community's way of allowing patients to cop out and not feel bad about their poor health. That's my theory. That's not science.
So about getting fit with regards to getting
like,
fit.
I hear people all the time, well, my doctor says dieting doesn't work for me. And I'm like, your doctor probably didn't want to get sued because your doctor probably told you you're fat. And I try and make light of it because I want these people to stop making the excuses and just go, okay, maybe I'm not different.
You quit using that as a cop out. So
yeah.
Okay.
And that's why I like the way I approach nutrition. It's pretty easy to stick to. There's some things that you kind of have to avoid long term.
Well, my understanding, it was like you have one meal a day and it's 3 or 4 steaks. That's what I read. Is that still the play?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I'll do a fast, longer than 24 hours. I'm in the middle of a 72-hour fast right now. So the last time I ate was Sunday night, and it's Tuesday morning right now. So I haven't had, and this one's a dry fast. So I haven't had any food or water since.
Okay.
Since
and in
Sunday.
your world, like, is that the one size fits all like you would prescribe that to anybody that you talk to, or how do you deal with the nutrition stuff?
The way I'm doing it is, and I'm going to do a lot more writing on nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I want to come back to a point. It was the way of eating combined with the way of moving that triggered this effect in your body to shift, because you'd already had by and large, the nutrition thing worked out. But when you started moving differently,
if you have one and not the other, nothing happens.
Okay. I want to make that really clear because it's really easy. Most people want to sell a device and be like, yeah, this is the thing that's going to change you. And you got to be really clear that they go hand in hand with what we're eating and how we're eating and when.
Yeah, if you don't body the building blocks, if you hire a bunch of construction workers and don't give them any wood, you're not getting a house.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing with, is Tony Robbins involved with OsteoStrong? Is that, give me a little bit of background. What is OsteoStrong? And then what's your involvement with Tony on that project?
So OsteoStrong is a series of franchise clinics. There's 140, I believe. And then it's in 8 different countries. So it's very successful, help a lot of people. Tony's been promoting it, and he's been a user of it since it was a prototype.
And what is it compared to X3? So I understand the difference.
It's a series of medical devices that hit every point in the body and stimulate bone growth, but the equipment is $120,000. X3 is $550, so it's very different.
Yes.
It's OsteoStrong devices are the size of a couple of cars.
Wow.
And there's a lot of computers and robotics. There's a robotic arm on every one that ensures the correct and repetitive positioning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And what do we need to know if we've crossed this threshold and it's like, hey, I'm starting to think about more my body in a longer term. As men, what do we need to be thinking about in terms of bone density? How does your program address the bone density issues we might be facing as we get older?
It grows bone like we grow bone when we're kids. So it's an emulation of high impact.
Without the risk of energy or without
the risk of impact, right? So it works for people of any age. Now they need to not be damaging themselves nutritionally. Like there's 20 different studies that show that vegan nutrition damages bone and you get osteoporosis much faster. Well, I recommend carnivore nutrition. I'm told that my recommendations are extreme. I disagree with that. I think they're well thought out and easily backed up by science, but okay, you can call it whatever you want,
right.
But eat animal protein, you'll live longer. And you won't fracture a bone. You won't live in misery.
The concepts and the ideas that you're touting, and you've built the technology with X3. I mean, is X3 the only way that we can practice this stuff? If the guy out there can't, lay down the bucks for an X3 system right now, are there ways that he could look at his current movement patterns and start to integrate some of the things that you're talking about into them?
I'd love to have like a starter X3 that instead of being $500 was $50. But here's the problem. Regular people who are pretty strong already would buy the $50 one, and then it would shatter and injure them. And then, they'd file a lawsuit. Everyone would want to buy the cheap one and act like it's the expensive one.
Okay.
Thought about it from a liability perspective. It can't be done.
I got it. All right. Here's the question I've been wanting to ask. Your dad was part of the Lunar Rover project, which is awesome. But I got more intrigued by what was written about the system that is this true? He developed a system to protect the home garden from intruders? Okay, I got to hear about this.
Well, so my dad, when you're a California resident, you just kind of surrounded by animals and you love them. So you want a garden and you don't want to put a big ugly fence around it, but you don't want deer taking one bite out of every tomato,
right?
And just ruining the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So what he did was he had motion detector sprinklers, but he took the motion detector and hooked it up to different pipes and different sprinklers that would handle like 300 pounds per square inch. And when the deer would, they'd see the tomatoes and they'd see the cucumbers and all the vegetables in there, and they'd kind of slowly walk. These things would trip on and they'd get hit with a beam of water that was just like, getting punched by Mike Tyson, just bang. And, we'd sit there in the lawn chairs, and like sometimes they'd be far enough away where it would come on and they would just get like kind of the spray. And even the spray was like so hard, they're like, no way, not going anywhere near there. They cut a wide berth around that garden. And the funny thing was, the raccoons could get underneath it, but the second they tripped it, it was so loud that they were gone too.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, it was like nobody ever took a bite out of anything.
That's awesome. That's so good.
Yeah. That's not where we go.
All right, man. Well, this book, weightlifting is a waste of time. So is cardio. And there's a better way to have the body you want, available everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. Go check that out.
Yeah, I know Amazon is Amazon prints them, so I would go to Amazon.
Okay. And then where do we learn more about X3?
You can find everything. I did a landing page with like all the links. It's drj.com, DOCTORJ.com, the letter J.
How'd you get that? I figured he would have got the
Julius Irving.
Yeah.
He's been fishing for like the last 15 years.
He slept on that.
I think he did have this website, but I was contacted by a kind of domain broker, and they're like, "Do you want this?" And I was like, "Yeah."
All right.
I really do.
drj.com, man. Nice
Yeah.
work.
Well, I guess I'm Dr. J now.
You got it. Hey, man, it's been really good to connect with you. I've appreciated you've opened my eyes to a lot of things, and some of the things you're bringing here are going to be confronting for a lot of people. It'll be interesting to see how this stirs things up, but looking forward to how you develop this.
In a way, yes. In a way, no. And I tell people, like, if you're going to get emotional about a scientific issue, you've already defined yourself as a fool.
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.